Good afternoon. My name is Evan Tenpenny, Colonel of the Belleville East JRTC. We will now begin our ceremony. On behalf of District 201 JRTC, we salute our veterans for their service and dedication to our country. We would not be here today without your service.
Roger. Or Art. Call. Peace. Freeze and arms. Order. Arms. Right. Peace. Forward. Arch.
At this time, we ask that everyone please stand and remove their hats. Personnel in uniform and veterans, please render proper salute as the District 201 Color Guard presents our colors while the Belleville East Wind Ensemble plays the national anthem.
Stand by, stand by, stand by. Colors. 10-inch up. Right shoulder, arms. Colors ready, cut. Step.
I would now like to introduce to you Mr. Jason Carsons, Principal of Belleville East.
Thank you very much, Evan. What a great day. A great day that we celebrate our veterans. I'm very proud of Belleville East and our JROTC program. As you might see, if it's dark when we leave tonight, that you'll see we have our green light bulbs out to support our veterans also. So we thank them for their service and allowing us to serve our children every day with a valuable education. Welcome to our 6th annual Veterans Day program at Belleville East. I would like to thank Dr. Dozier, Superintendent of District 201, for his continued support, Mark Tessero, Director of the Belleville East Wind Ensemble, Andrew Cowell, Director of the Belleville East Concert Choir, Natalie Sizz, our Culinary Arts Instructor, for our desserts at our reception, and the District 201 JROTC for hosting this event. To my right, at the corner of the stage, is the POW MIA table. There's a significant meaning to this table. The white tablecloth draped over the table represents the purity of the response to our country's call to arms. The empty chair depicts an unknown face, representing no specific soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine, but all who are not here with us. The table itself is round to show that our concern for them is never ending. The Bible represents faith in a higher power and the pledge to our country, founded as one nation under God. The black napkin stands for the emptiness these warriors have left in the hearts of their families and friends. The single red rose reminds us of their families and loved ones. The red ribbon represents the love of our country, which inspired them to answer the nation's call. The yellow candle and its yellow ribbon symbolize the everlasting hope for a joyous reunion with those yet accounted for. The slices of lemon on the bread plate remind us of their bitter fate. The salt upon the bread plate represent the tears of their families. The wine glass, turned upside down, reminds us that our distinguished comrades cannot be with us to drink a toast or join in the festivities of the evening. Now I'd like to represent the choir who will be singing For a Fallen. Thank you, Belleville East Concert Choir. I would now like to introduce to you those that are representing our military branches on stage in front of their service flags. Representing the Air Force is Staff Sergeant Sherrard Bilbo. Representing the Marines is Sergeant Richard Service. Unfortunately, the representatives of Army, Navy, and U.S. Coast Guard could not be with us today. We'd like to thank all the veterans in attendance today. We want to extend not only a hearty welcome, but a heartfelt welcome. For without your service and a sacrifice, we may not be here today. Evan Timpany, East JROTC Colonel, will be saying a few words about Veterans Day.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, families, friends, and veterans. I'm Colonel Evan Timpany of the District 201 JROTC at Belleville East. Today we come together to honor our brave fighting men and women. We, who for more than 230 years have secured our freedom by their duty, honor, and selfless service. As Veterans Day is impending upon us, this simple question begins to arise among the students on campus. What does a veteran mean to you? To many, a veteran is thought as someone who risks their lives day in and day out for their country. As is true, the word veteran to me has gained an all-new meaning. After being part of a JROTC that I am lucky to have and the right to attend, I have had my eyes open to more than just words as what a veteran is, but deeper for who they are. When I first joined this JROTC, I was issued a blue polo shirt. Each of these shirts have words on the back of them that mean something very important. To me, the first word, leadership, is the ability to work in a team and retain instruction so much that I may lead as well. The next word is scholarship, the ability to carry out my duties while holding the commitment to my academic obligations. Citizenship, understanding my rights as a citizen of the United States and acting accordingly. Awareness, keeping my eyes open to the people, places, and things in my everyday life and how actions can affect each of them. These four simple words, when applied in service to our country, are commonly referred to as veterans, postponing their own personal dreams and aspirations, standing guard countless hours while we rest, separated from their loved ones as they defend our nation, safeguarding America through good and bad. Our servicemen and women perform their duties tirelessly and ask little recognition or fanfare. They understand the meaning of hardship, and it is this devotion to duty that gives us all strength. For those who stand guard in times of peace, we thank you. For those who have witnessed the terror of combat, we owe you a debt we could never repay. Here's what the flag means in the words of Roger W. Hancock. Red is for bravery of the bloodshed and sacrifice. Freedom came with lives as the price. White is for liberty, freedom's purity. Life be free from God's decree. Blue is for justice as vast as the sky, over freedom's land to occupy. Veterans, regardless of their service and the era in which they have served, continue to pay the price forevermore. They pay for our freedom. All gave some and some gave all, as clearly represented by the empty chair on the stage. Thank you again for joining myself and the Belleville District 201 JROTC this afternoon for a celebration with our veterans. May God bless you. God bless all military and veterans. And may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Next, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Air Force Lieutenant Colonel retired Jeffrey Ditlevson. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Ditlevson is our recently an aerospace instructor at STEM Gateway High School in Missouri. His last assignment in the Air Force was Deputy Director, Force Protection Directorate, Central Command Commission in 1994. Throughout his career, he performed duties as a flight commander, nuclear security officer, flight training officer, operations officer, deputy commander providing direct presidential support, in-resident intermediate developmental education student, squadron commander, and COCOM and HAF branch and division chief. To read more about Lieutenant Colonel full biography, please check out our district JROTC Facebook page. I would like to introduce now Air Force Lieutenant Colonel retired Jeff Ditlevson.
You know you retire when you have to put on the reading glasses. Before I get started, I just want to say, how about that band? National anthem was outstanding, and how about that choir? You know, I was talking to a couple of them before we got started, and I asked them why they were all dressed up, and they mentioned that they would be singing today. And I asked if it was going to be something good, and if I would enjoy it. And let me just tell you, they didn't disappoint there. So how about one more? So thank you for the warm welcome. I'm certainly honored to be speaking with you here today on such an important occasion. Today we honor the servicemen and women and remember not only the tremendous sacrifice that they've made, but we also remember what it takes, the courage, what it takes to defend this country and all the freedoms that we possess. During today's ceremony, we'll actually celebrate Veterans Day for just a few moments in time. We'll talk about heroes, we'll talk about loss, and then the country will move right along. People will start their weekends. Students will get a day off tomorrow. People might fire the barbecue grill up for one last time of the year. And retail stores will offer great discounts on mattresses and TVs. I think that instead of looking at it as simply Veterans Day being a day that you can sleep in or perhaps get a great deal on a PlayStation game, I think we should look at it more as an occasion that we recognize the contribution and the sacrifice for so many men and women and their families have made in order to permit this country and its occupied position to responsibility and freedom worldwide. Now, before we can learn the significance of what Veterans Day really is all about, let me just explain to you briefly how Veterans Day actually became what it is now and why it should mean so much to each and every one of us. As you probably already know, Veterans Day is celebrated on November 11th every year to celebrate and honor the military veterans for their great contributions and loyalty to their country. What you may not know is that Veterans Day is actually also celebrated in various parts of the world. It's also known as Armistice Day. Now, the name Armistice Day comes from the end of World War I, specifically on 18 November 1918, when the Germans signed what was called the Armistice, which is basically a peace treaty or a ceasefire agreement where they agreed to basically stop fighting against the Allied forces. So that document was called an armistice. That day became Armistice Day, signed on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. And it marked the end of the First World War, which was then known as the War to End All Wars, which sadly we know is not true. The following year, in 1919, President Wilson actually enacted a law that passed that made Armistice Day a day here in the United States for the very first time, but it wasn't until it was approved by Congress in 1938 that it became a federal holiday. As the United States moved forward and fought in other global conflicts such as World War II and the Korean War, veterans needed to be identified and recognized from those conflicts. And so it was because of that Dwight Eisenhower signed a bill into law in 1954 renaming Armistice Day as Veterans Day. And we've honored our troops and their service on that day ever since. Today, 22 million veterans, truly the hidden heroes of this powerful and peaceful nation, walk among us. Our veterans are drawn from many generations and from many backgrounds. Some of these brave men and women charged across great battlefields. Some also fought on the high seas, and some others guarded the open skies. Yet all of them contributed to the character and the greatness of America. They may be colleagues, they may be friends, they may be neighbors, and certainly they may be family members who have answered the highest calling and have returned to live in the nation for which they defended. To borrow some words from former President John F. Kennedy, he once said, "As we express our gratitude, we must never forget the highest appreciation is not to simply utter the words, but to live by them." As a member of the Air Force for 21 years, I myself can attest to those words. As in the Air Force, I served as a security forces officer, and as such, I performed duties protecting the President of the United States, our nation's nuclear weapons and air bases located all around the country. My duties have taken me to many corners of the globe, with a great deal of time spent in the Middle East. During my service, I looked to heroes and I looked to mentors who served before me and showed me the importance not only of putting on the uniform, but also everything else that goes along with it. While I still get the occasional "thank you for your service" from a stranger or perhaps a friendly neighbor, or I might even get the 10% discount on Home Depot 2x4s, I think it's more important that we as a nation recognize our nation's heroes. So that's why we're here today, to honor those heroes and remember their achievements, their courage, and their dedication, and simply say thank you for their sacrifices. You know, thinking of the heroes who join us in this group today and those who are here only in spirit, a person can't help but feel awed by the enormity of what we encounter. To all the service members and veterans who are here in this room today, thank you for answering your call to duty. You have certainly made our armed forces the strongest and respected in the world. To all the mothers and fathers who have tearfully sent their children off to war, husbands and wives who have waited patiently for their loved ones to return home, and of course, certainly for the children, many here today who have grown up away from moms and dads for extended periods, praying for their safe return. We know that you have lived through difficult times and have often had to take on an extra load to keep those home fires burning. Thank you for what you have done as well. The service members we honor today come from all walks of life, but they all share some very fundamental qualities. They possess courage, they possess integrity, determination, selflessness, and certainly a dedication to duty. All these qualities are needed to serve a cause larger than oneself. Many of these people, these volunteers, these veterans, they didn't ask to leave their families and go off and fight in some foreign land just because they love fighting. In fact, many didn't even raise their hands to want to go in the first place. They were called to be part of something bigger than themselves. So many Americans have fought and died on battlefields abroad and more recently here at home to defend our freedoms and defend our way of life. Allow me to share with you some staggering statistics to help you understand the significance of the patriots who have paid the ultimate price. During World Wars I and II, the United States lost over 344,000 U.S. military service members. That's the equivalent of filling Busch Stadium to the maximum capacity over 8 times. 34,000 U.S. service members fought the bitter cold and died in the Korean War, with nearly another 8,000 still unaccounted for. In the heat and jungles of Vietnam, over 47,000 U.S. military members were killed by an enemy they weren't prepared or supported or equipped to fight. 148 more were killed during the swift conflict of the Persian Gulf War, and more recently, nearly 6,700 military members have lost their lives during Operations Iraqi and Enduring Freedom. Now, if you were paying attention and you were doing the math in your head, you'll notice that the United States and its military families have lost nearly 432,000 brave men and women in major conflicts since World War I. That is the equivalent of losing an entire population of Kansas City, Missouri. Today, too many brave men and women continue to make the ultimate sacrifice, and even as we lose so many of those heroes, more Americans step forward to raise their hands and say, "I'm here, I'm ready to serve." They follow in the footsteps of the generations of brave and selfless Americans. While the idea of a world without war certainly sounds great, and we all hope that war can be avoided at all costs, the fact remains that war simply cannot be fought without veterans. Veterans have fought in wars to free slaves, to end genocide, to overthrow terrorist regimes and their evil followers. You may have heard the expression that without our veterans, Americans might be speaking German or Russian or perhaps even Japanese. Regardless of your views on war and peace, we do know that without our veterans, America would simply not be America. Now, my career field of security forces is certainly one of the most challenging, one of the most rewarding, but also sadly one of the deadliest of all Air Force careers. 14 security forces members have been killed in combat-related duties since 9/11. Many others have returned home burdened with mental and physical disabilities that keep them from living the ordinary lives that you and I take for granted sometimes. I have personally witnessed this pain and suffering more times than I could or should have had to. Some of these heroes, all of whom chose to fight for this country, even took their own lives, or perhaps even continue to struggle with things that many of us take for granted. I'd like to leave you with the story of one such security forces hero who fought not to become one of these statistics, and who is alive today despite all of the odds being against him. Senior Airman Brian Kolfage was on his second Operation Iraqi Freedom deployment in September of 2004. He was performing customs work for the Department of Agriculture, which basically amounted to searching bags for people that were about ready to travel home to make sure they didn't have any trinkets or any hidden treasure from Saddam's palaces in there. Now, he had worked a night shift, and he was just waking up in the middle of the afternoon to get some water and head over to the gym. He'd walked about 20 feet out of his tent when he heard the sound of a turbine engine and a subsequent explosion. You see, the airbase had come under a rocket attack. It would be the last time that Brian Kolfage would walk on the legs that he was born with. During that rocket attack, a 107mm rocket shell exploded about 3 feet away from Airman Kolfage. He was thrown several feet in the air and landed against a wall of sandbags. When he awoke, his mouth was full of sand, and a woman standing next to him was screaming at the top of her lungs, screaming because of the seriousness of Brian's injuries. Airman Kolfage's best friend, who was also in a tent with him, heard the explosion, was thrown from his bed as well, and rushed to help his friend. He heard his friend screaming outside and found him bloody, horribly disfigured, and clinging to life. The airman and a medic rushed to help Airman Kolfage, who was struggling to breathe with only one lung as the other had already collapsed. Brian's friends and others tried desperately to divert his attention from the seriousness of his multiple injuries as they loaded him on a stretcher, each member holding a different body part for fear that it would simply fall off. Calmly, Airman Kolfage assured them that he already knew the extent of his injuries and that he simply wanted to go home to his family. Despite suffering multiple amputations, both legs and one arm and part of his other hand, and the looming possibility of death, Airman Kolfage maintained incredible strength and courage throughout his recovery. Incredibly, Brian walked out of Walter Reed Hospital only 11 months after being injured. To this day, Brian Kolfage is still the most severely wounded airman to fight and survive in any war. Brian is now a 2014 graduate from the University of Arizona School of Architecture, where he rose among the ranks to be the top of his class, despite having to learn how to draw with his left hand. With persistence and determination, he has beat the odds that were stacked against him, and he recently was awarded one of the most prestigious military scholarships, the Pat Tillman Scholar Award. I was fortunate to have met Brian and his family shortly after they returned back to the States. following the attack and following his serious injuries. I visited with him at Walter Reed Hospital many times, and I watched him fight. I watched him fight to speak, and I watched him fight to walk, and mostly I watched him fight to live. I was there when the Air Force Chief of Staff and the Secretary of the Air Force awarded him his Purple Heart. I was also proudly in attendance at his retirement ceremony as he was medically retired, one of the most humbling and awe-inspiring events I've had the pleasure to attend. In 2014, Brian was bestowed the most honorable award that a wounded warrior can receive, the George C. Lang Award for Courage. Not only for his fearlessness, but also for his selflessness. You see, Brian and his wife still travel back to Walter Reed to meet and visit with wounded warriors and tell them that it's going to be okay. I would ask you to keep Brian and his family and all their brave men and women who have fought and who continue to fight for this country in your hearts today. And to remember every day the serious emotional and sometimes serious physical challenges that veterans face when they return home from service. Veterans have given us freedom, they've given us security, and they've given us the greatest nation on earth. It is impossible to put a price tag on that. Therefore, we must remember them. Therefore, we must appreciate them. May God bless all the veterans who wear the uniform, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your stories. You really don't understand the impact until you hear experiences like that, so thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to introduce Miss Harley Martinez. She's part of our East JROTC cadet. She'll be singing You Raise Me Up by Josh Groban.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary and troubles come, my heart burdened be. When I am still awake here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. There is no life without its hunger. Each restless heart beats so imperfectly. But when you come, I am filled with wonder. Sometimes I think I glimpse eternity.
you, Harley. At this time, would you please join me in a moment of silence for all of those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you. And also thank you to Noah Miller and Evan Risks, who played our echo taps. I want to thank all of you for coming today. A special thanks to Dr. Dozier and the District 201 School Board for their dedication and support of the District 201 JROTC. And I would also like to thank Ms. Ann Bellini, who is the sponsor of our District 201 JROTC program. We would like to extend an invitation for all of you to join us in our cafeteria for refreshments and fellowship. This is the conclusion of this program. There will be members of our JROTC outside the Performing Arts Center to lead you to the cafeteria. Thank you.